and welcome to another Bake Along with Cake Angel. I'm Angela from Cake Angel, and today I'm going to show you how to make vegan sugar cookies. Now this is a recipe that's been hotly requested on my channel recently, ever since I posted my vegan royal icing recipe, so I wanted to show you how to make some great vegan sugar cookies to go along with that. So let's run through the ingredients of what we'll be using today. So the first ingredient is our vegan butter. This is the particular brand that I use in Canada, and I like to use the block-based butter instead of the spreadable one. Now let me show you why. So this particular brand also sells one in a tub, and this is meant more for spreading on things like your toast. You can use it in cooking recipes as well. But I find it has a particularly higher water content than the block one, which will actually cause our sugar cookies to spread when they're baking, which is something that we don't really want. We want to retain that nice sharp shape from our cutters. So again, this is why I wouldn't use this one. But if it is all that you can get, you would just need to add in a little extra flour to your recipe and then they'll turn out just fine. The next thing that we're using to make this vegan is an egg replacement. And there's all sorts of different things that you can use for this. You could use a flax egg, you could use aquafaba, or you can use plant-based milk, which is what I'll be using today. I'm using 2 tablespoons of almond milk. You can use whichever plant-based milk you prefer. This is just my personal preference. And it's just going to give us that nice extra consistency into the sugar cookies to use instead of our egg. And then the rest of our ingredients would be the same that you would use in a normal sugar cookie recipe. So I'm going to be using some vanilla bean paste. You could use extract instead, whichever flavour you prefer. I'll be using some salt, a ½ teaspoon, and a little tip here for you. You can see that I'm using a medicine cup for this. These are really great, and I'm sure you have these hanging around your house. And they're perfect if you need to just measure tiny amounts of things, because they have the measuring guides on the side for you. So there's our salt. Next I have my flour. This is all-purpose flour, and we're going to be adding this in a little bit at a time just to make sure we get the consistency right. Now consistencies for cookies is very important because the humidity in your kitchen can actually affect that as well. And it is quite warm here today, so I may find that I need a little bit more flour than usual. Our last ingredient is our sugar, the most important thing in a sugar cookie. And the first thing we're going to do when we start to make these is actually cream our butter and our sugar together. So let's go ahead and get that done now. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this process up front as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to start by creaming our butter and our sugar. Now I am already preheating my oven temperature to 350 degrees Fahrenheit as well. So make sure you pop your oven on before you start this process so that it's nice and evenly heated before we put our cookies in there. I'm going to be using the paddle attachment for my stand mixer as well. I do prefer to use a stand mixer when I'm making sugar cookies so that it takes all that arm work out for me. Let's go ahead and add in our butter. And this is 220 grams of plant-based butter, which is around a cup. You'll find that most of the blocks of butter have those measurements on there as well for you, so that makes it nice and easy if you don't have a scales. And then I'm going to add my sugar in. And that's 1 cup of sugar, which is 200 grams. Let's pop our attachment on. And then we're going to go ahead and start it off on stir. Now you can see at the very bottom, if I open this up, there are some little bits there that haven't really incorporated, so I'm just going to give it a scrape down. And I always use a silicone spatula for this. I find it's just much easier to make sure my ingredients don't really stick to that too much. Let's clean off the paddle as well. And we'll give it another stir. And that's all we're going to do. I don't stir this for too long because I find that also will increase the chances of your cookies spreading. Next thing we're going to do is add in our liquid. So we've got our plant-based milk, again 2 tablespoons, which is 30 ml. And I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of my flavouring. Now I'm just using a vanilla bean paste for this. Really nice flavouring combination that I do like sometimes in my sugar cookies is a teaspoon of vanilla and then a teaspoon of almond. But of course you can use whatever flavour you like here. So next we're going to go ahead and stir this again. And that's where we're going to stop. Again, not stirring for too long. We don't want to incorporate too much air into this. So the final stage is to add our dry ingredients. I'm going to add my salt to my flour. Just give it a quick stir. And I'm going to add this in stages. So remember I mentioned at the beginning that sometimes when the humidity is different in my kitchen, I may need slightly more, I may need slightly less. So let's put that much in for now. Now instead of turning the mixer on straight away at this point and getting that huge puff of the flour cloud, I'm just going to give it a bit of a stir with my spatula. Let's clean this off as well, that will help. And then we'll pop the attachment back on and we'll give that a little stir. And that's all it needs. So we're going to add some more flour. Let's take this off actually. Give it another stir with our spatula. Now you'll know when your cookie dough is ready because the mixture will actually come away from the side of the mixing bowl itself. And that is the point when you would stop adding flour to it or it'll just be too crumbly. Okay, that's perfect. Let's give this another stir. Now we're going to add the rest of it. We'll give it a final scrape down with our spatula. Now, if you do find that this is a little bit too dry for you, again, the humidity in your kitchen is going to play a big factor in that. If it's really dry, then you could always add just a little bit of extra milk to it. But this looks good. We're going to pop it back on and give it one last stir. And that's it. You can see that it is coming away from the edges of the bowl really nicely for us. It hasn't formed a big ball yet, but that's fine because we can give it a little knead on the counter as well. So next we're going to do is take it out of the bowl, start rolling it out and cutting our shapes. I'm just going to scrape everything down off of our mixer. So the other test you can have with your cookie dough is to actually take a piece of it, a little piece like this, and just feel it in your fingers. Roll it up, see what it rolls up like. This doesn't feel sticky. You can see it's not sticking to me at all. It's rolling up really nicely. It'll flatten nicely too, so that's a really good test for you. So there's our vegan sugar cookie dough made. You can see how easy that was. You don't need to mix for long at all, and I'm just stirring rather than mixing, so that's going to reduce the likelihood of them spreading. Perfect. So I'm going to put my mixer to one side, clean up the counter, then we'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to roll out. Okay, so our cookie dough is ready. I'm just going to run through everything that I use to roll out my cookie dough. There's lots and lots of different ways to do this. Some people like to do it straight on their counter. Some would use a silicone mat or just a large work mat for it. I like to use parchment paper. And the reason I do this is that when I roll and cut my cookies on there, I can then put the piece straight on the baking tray, so there's no mess at all when I do this. And I use 2 pieces because I like to actually put my cookie dough on one layer, then I'll cover it with the second one and I'll roll on top of this. Now you might be wondering what these are for. These are paint sticks from a hardware store, never been used for anything other than baking, and I use them instead of guide rings on my rolling pin. These actually give me the perfect depth that I like for my cookies. If you don't have guide rings, lots of rolling pins you can buy will have guide rings either built into them or you can attach them onto them. I find these are great though. They're free, you can get them from your hardware store. You can dishwash them as well, which is perfect. So to do that, what I'll be doing is actually just laying them either side. You can see they're not going to touch my dough at all. And then I'll be rolling on top like this. So I'm going to just move the camera again so you can watch how easy it is to roll out your dough this way. Okay, so I'm going to start by just taking some of my cookie dough. Give it a little bit of a squish together. You can see how nice and light it is. It smells really, really good too. Just give it a little bit of a roll back and forth. I like to flatten it down a little bit. Then I cut my second piece of parchment on top. And we're going to start rolling. Now you'll see I have this bowl here. This is for my offcuts because I don't want to keep re-rolling the same pieces over and over because that can actually make your cookies crack. So instead, let's go ahead. So you'll see I want to position these so that they will be inside of the rolling pin but on the outside of the paper. And I'm just going to press down. And as soon as they start to hit, that's when I know that I've got the right depth for my cookies. I'm going to turn this around. Now sometimes your parchment paper will crease, so just readjust it. And I like to bake my cookies really thick so that they're nice and yummy and chewy. Okay, and that's done. Then we just peel it off, pop this to one side. Then I'm going to go ahead and use some of my cutters. So if you're using 3D printed cutters, which these are ones that I've made myself, you just want to make sure that when you use them, you give a really good press down. I like to give it a bit of a jiggle as well, but whatever method you're used to is perfectly fine. A little bit of a squeeze because you can flex them and then pull it out. I'm going to go ahead and cut another one. And let's see if we can fit another one here. And then with my offcuts, all I'm going to do is take the pieces, pop them in my bowl, and then rather than roll these up straight away to reuse, I'm going to leave them until the end, until I've gone through this process for the entire batch of dough, and then I'll reuse them at that stage. You really want to try and minimize the amount of times that you work with the dough because it can sort of crack a little bit, as I mentioned earlier. And then it's as simple as just popping it on whatever baking tray you use. I like to use these ones. Again, you can use whichever you like, whether you use ones with sides or no sides. I'm just going to slide my baking parchment on. Oops. Let's just fix this one a little bit, just put my finger in it, but that's okay. And then we're just going to pop these in the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes on 350. Once they're done, I'll come back and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, let's have a quick look at our cookies. So I'm going to leave them cool on the pan for a few minutes, but I just want to show you this minimal spread. You will always get a little bit, just again with the water content that is in the vegan butters. But you can see it's not too bad. It's still got that nice shape to it as well. I'm going to leave these cool completely, and then once I'm able to take them off the tray, I'll show you what they look like afterwards. Okay, so all of our cookies are baked. We've got some on this side which are still cooling, and then our 3 original ones here which are nice and cool. Now don't forget that these were quite large cookies. I used 4-inch cookie cutters for them. We've ended up with 18 in total, which is a great size for a batch of cookies. Now don't forget that whilst these are vegan cookies, anyone can of course eat them, but they are really good if you have customers or friends and family that can't have dairy or they have egg allergies, then this is a great alternative for them. And I'll pop the link up top again for my royal icing recipe so you can see how easy it is to make vegan royal icing as well, so you can keep them completely free of dairy and egg products. So let's take a look at one up close. So again, this is a 4-inch cookie that we made. I just want to show you the crumbs so you can see what they look like inside. They're quite soft, they have still a little bit of a crunch to them and a nice texture inside as well. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this bake along. Don't forget, if you do make these cookies, I would love to see what you make. Use the hashtag that's down below here, Bake with Cake Angel, so I can see all your lovely creations on social media. And make sure you subscribe to my channel as well, so you can keep up to date with the next videos that I'll be posting. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.